You've aged well, Adam. Not to
Clean
go
living. Clean living.
Yes. Going back to the Jameson, you sounded like my mom. Watching The Last Ship, Stephen. Why can't you be more like Jordan?
Jordan calls me every week.
It's true. I don't call her enough. So glad to have this next guest on the program. Let's get the formalities out of the way. But of course, if you don't know who he is, Full Metal Jacket is where I first saw him when I watched it at a point that was completely age inappropriate. And then, of course, Chuck, fantastic show. Sci-Fi Fans, Firefly. And right now, The Last Ship, my parents call and spoil every episode for me before I get to watch it on Hulu. Adam Baldwin, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks, Stephen. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. It's a problem. My parents, it's one of the few shows that my parents watch and I watch, but they have cable and I don't. And so every episode just gets ruined.
What? So they call you up and say, Stephen, Adam kicked ass again.
Yes, pretty much, because they also sound like 1920s paper boys.
I was going to say, that's how your mom sounds, right?
Yeah, that's how she sounds. Stephen, Adam Baldwin, see? It's really creepy. You make her sound like Jameson at the Daily Bugle. But
I like Jordan better.
The thing is, that's not far off at all. My mom definitely prefers my brother. No, but this is, we've always talked about having you on, and I just know you're so busy that it's one of those things where I don't want to bother you. And then I saw that you were doing every Tom, Dick, and Harry's podcast, so I said, hey, hold on a second. I'm a dick.
You're calling me cheap, huh? Cheap date.
You are a cheap date. Except you're a big man, so I would assume you eat a lot. Let's talk firstly. Everyone knows, obviously, we'll get into politics. Last Ship was kind of a sleeper hit, wasn't it? I mean, it's become really popular, and I know was it sort of a slow build? Because when it came out, it seems like, a lot of times in the summer, they kind of just put something in and hope it works.
It actually came out of the box strong. It was a great promotional run, and it was a hit from the out of the gate. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I don't know what I'm talking about either.
But it has grown, and now we're in season 2. Season 2 always has a natural drop off in any show.
Yeah.
But we're steady as she goes, and we're very hopeful we'll do season 3. We don't know yet, but we're hopeful.
The life of an actor. I remember even back when Chuck was going on, that was kind of always, well, what's going to happen with it? Even with the successful shows, which is why I wonder, when I watch something like The Walking Dead, they'll write like 2 seasons out, a character that'll come back from season 1 to season 5, and the story wouldn't be complete without it. Is that just sort of a risk you take with series like this? Because, I mean, you know in this industry how volatile it can be. Even if the show's doing well, some guy can go, I want to try something different.
Well, shows that are well put together generally have what we like to call, quote, a Bible, in that you can have it stretch out over a 5-year period or 3-year period so that they can do that. The other ones that sort of fly by the seat of their pants can get caught. Oh, we're getting picked up again? Crap, we got to write more. Hurry up.
Yeah, that happened on a show that I worked on once with ABC Family, and you could just tell they were like, well, let's throw in another love triangle. Oh, we already did it. Make it a lesbian. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. The ultimate in that, what I guess would be Seinfeld. Just another show about nothing.
Yeah, but it's a fantastic program. See, it worked for them because that's kind of the theme. Unless you're not a Seinfeld fan, in which case I rescind my comment and will apologize.
I love Seinfeld.
Well, I love Curb Your Enthusiasm too, and a lot of conservatives got upset about it. And I've always sort of contended that, hey, Larry David is the ultimate conservative who doesn't realize it. Just hates political correctness. He hates people. He doesn't want to be involved in anyone else's life. Doesn't want them involved with his. Of course, he's just a Hollywood leftist by trade. But if you watch it, the show, it could be written by any conservative.
Well, this is what I ask all my liberal friends, of which I have many. How do you actually live your life as a quote-unquote liberal? And they're hard-pressed to answer that question specifically. Well, I care more than Republicans do. And then it sort of trails off.
Yeah,
it's funny. It's funny. You pin them down and you go.
I don't know.
I don't know. It should shut up. Shut up, he explained.
Halliburton.
Yeah, Dick Cheney was
Yeah.
for gay marriage before Obama was for gay marriage or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I remember I was auditioning actually one time it was actually a hosting gig, and at this point, someone knew that I was conservative. And no, at this point, I had been with Fox News for a very little amount of time because, I started off as an actor, comedian long before that. And so I was still kind of in this transition phase where I was still with my old agents and they had no idea what to do with it because all of a sudden I was working at Fox. And I was in there, with these hosting gigs, they put you in and kind of circulate you with other co-hosts. And he goes, "Oh, so you've been at Fox News?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "So have you done Huckabee's show?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "You know what? He's not what you'd expect. He's a pretty funny guy." Yeah. And this guy said, who's a well-known host now, said, "Oh, what's funny about him? His views on gay marriage." And I remember this because at that time I looked him right in the face and I said, "You mean the exact same views as Barack Obama?" And he didn't know what to say. And of course I couldn't use that now because he's changed that. But it just goes to show you how quickly those things change. And it's not really based on what's actually happening now. It's based on emotion. Well, Huckabee is the bad Christian and Obama must be for gay marriage, even though he was against it.
Well, he's evolved.
Yes. He's evolved into a super virus. Oh, my God. That's like The Last Ship. See what I did there? Callback?
Yeah. I thought we were talking about The Last Ship. You bring me on to talk politics. You pin me down, man. That's kind of rude.
It is pretty rude. And you're a bigger man than I. I will say this. It's got to be hard. They must put everyone else on apple boxes when they're shooting with you.
Well, at least quarter apples or half apples. Do you know what an eighth apple is called, right?
Okay, well, remember the FCC monitors this, so let's be careful. But what is it?
It's called a pancake.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I was expecting something radically offensive. Oh my gosh. No. We have to go to the first break, and we barely got into politics. Adam Baldwin, Last Ship. Watch it if you're not. We'll be right back. Louder with Crowder. Back with Adam Baldwin. I know some of you are going to get, "Man, why aren't you talking about politics?" So, Adam, here's one thing. You're pretty open about this, and I feel like you're one of the few people who walks the line pretty well. I mean, you're an open Christian. I don't feel like I'm letting the cat out of the bag. You post Bible verses on your Twitter. But you've also created some inroads with sort of factions that are pretty, I guess, historically anti-Christian. You look at GamerGate, you look at some of the sort of libertarian enclaves online, and they've been openly accepting of you. Do you think that's because of your consistency, your cultural influence? But why do you think that is?
Well, I think at first there was resistance to my right of center political viewpoints, but when taking GamerGate, for example, when they came up against the authoritarian leftists in their midst, they realized that, hey, I'd rather be with this guy than those guys who are trying to shut me up, because I don't want to shut anybody up. I think more speech is the solution to bad speech. Sure. Always have. Except when I was a brain dead liberal back when I was young, but that doesn't matter because I've evolved.
You've evolved. We've all evolved. Yeah.
Yes. But GamerGate's fascinating, and I got involved because I saw something fly through the Twitter feed, and it was a video post about some corruption in journalism pegged to some girl who had an affair, which I don't really care about. That doesn't rise to the level of the gate suffix in GamerGate. Gate is
everything's a gate now.
Watergate scandal. So I thought, well, private peccadillos are not a scandal. What is a scandal is what happened with the gaming journalists and with the some of the developers, and also the political infusion of radical feminism that came in, that gamers are like, we don't want this crap in our video games. Leave politics out of it.
Right.
So I thought, oh, GamerGate, let's see where this goes.
Yeah. And that was a wild ride, right? Did you brace yourself?
Oh, hell no, I don't care.
Adam Baldwin has, for those of you listening or watching, what we call screw you money. So that changes your point of view.
Well, I'm not a gamer. I just thought it would be interesting to see how young people who had not been exposed to any sort of right thinking would react over time, and I think they become more open. The open-minded ones surely have.
Yes.
Obviously, there's always a closed-minded set that you cannot reach. The true believers you can't reach, but I'd say the vast majority of gamers just want to be left alone to their games, to their devices. They don't want to be preached to by, the Church of the Left. So
Right.
they
So I will
they
say
they revolted. The peasants are revolting.
this
your,
is true.
Your Majesty.
Don't you dare call me Your Majesty. I come from Canada where we still have the Queen and her money, and you're about to cross some lines, good sir. I will say this. I had Sargon on, and I think I scared him off a bit because we did like 4 hours, and we went through everything. And my whole thing is I hate the whitewashing of Christianity. I hate people who back it up when they're with a different audience. So I just tried to be consistent. And the people on my channel were going, oh my gosh, I love Sargon. Sargon is borderline socialist economically, but he's so brilliant when it comes to cultural issues. And I would say 90% accepting. And then the part we uploaded on his channel, you had so many leftists who claimed to be part of the GamerGate crowd going, how could you ever do this guy's show? I'll never watch anything you do again. And I thought that reaction was pretty telling because even though they're more conservative, my audience probably a lot more Christians, probably half libertarian, half conservative, none of them were saying, why would you have this guy on because he disagrees with you on half? And I'm hoping that even the leftists who are sort of taking the red pill, so to speak, right now are seeing, wait, hold on a second. Not all of my friends are really my friends here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you see that happening, but I know you've been really involved with that. And like I said, you seem to gain sort of acceptance. I don't know if it's because you're large and they're physically afraid of you or what?
I think, I don't know, perhaps my foot in the door was the fact that I had some cultural cachet from Firefly and Serenity and some other sci-fi things, X-Files, whatnot. But over time, that coin of the realm only lasts so long. You have to be, like you said, consistent in your viewpoints and not back down to the bullying. And believe me, there was, thousands and thousands of tweets. I don't know if they're from bots or from replicants or whatever the hell they are, that were as harassing as you could please. But it's like, okay, so you're harassing me online and you don't like harassment. Great, gotcha. You're hypocrites. I get it. You're calling me names. Oh no.
Yeah.
But I think over time, how dare you? Over time, the truth will out, and as a Christian, we believe that He is the way and the truth and the light, and so
I'm going to have a trigger warning come up, but continue.
Life, but I don't know. I got off on a tangent there.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and it's funny. I will say this. We talk about trigger warnings. I still do find that even in dealing with all of these things, I don't believe in forcing my beliefs on anyone, or certainly enacting it as policy. Christ is kind of the ultimate trigger, still is for the left. Anything else, that still is the one. They're like, "Ooh, you say it," and they get mad and just flip out.
Yeah, but they're happy with Muhammad.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's because thousands of years later, Christ is still...
Or maybe I shouldn't say happy, but they're tolerant.
Yes, they are tolerant of the man who encouraged the throwing of gays off of buildings. Let me ask you this, because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but you're rough around the edges. If people follow you on Twitter, you're no shrinking violet, which is also why I think I've always had a lot of respect for you. Not to kiss your rear here, and I'll get back to denigrating you in a second. I think there's a lot of that sort of David syndrome, where a lot of people, they want their Christians to be perfect. They want them to be these sort of smooth stones. They want to pumice them down. And I remember, I won't say the exact quote, but we were talking, and I was feeling pretty down. This was pretty recent. And you said, well, what's your prayer like when you're praying with your wife? What are you being led to do? And you talked about that, and you had some incredible insight. And then I was mentioning some people who were putting us under attack. And you dropped some bombs. You're like, those bleep and bleep. And I was sitting there going, we just switched from one to the other. And there's nothing wrong with that because you're out there on the front lines. And I don't think a lot of people understand what it's like to be a Christian in the public sphere like you are, have to reach those kinds of people. You don't get to be, I forgot his name, the guy who ended up being a pedophile. Damn it, ruined the joke, the seventh heaven father crap.
I don't know.
You know who I'm talking about. The dad on Seventh Heaven, the pastor, you know what I'm saying? You're rough around the edges, but you're really solid in your beliefs. Do you feel like that just sort of comes with being authentic in the public sphere as a Christian?
I'm really uncomfortable with that comparison you dropped in there. Could you retract that, please? Because that was weird.
Yes, you are nothing like the pedophile father from Seventh Heaven in real life. In the show, was.
Stephen. Appreciate it. Wow.
Well, you were the one who brought up Muhammad, and subliminally that brought me to pedophile, and this is where we ended up. So,
wow. Look, I don't know. I don't know everything. I am a fallen individual. I am imperfect, and I am rough around the edges, as is everyone. And those that claim not to be, those that claim to be perfect, are liars.
Right.
So,
no, but I noticed that, and it's tough because you get it from all sides, right? I know
and
you
that's
get
and that's what the founding fathers knew and tried to and did for up until now, I guess, enshrine into our Constitution the fact that we don't want to be ruled by imperfect men. We want to be ruled by law that is determined by the will of the people, the consent of the governed, and we're past that. It seems. Mark Levin calls it the post-constitutional America. It's true. It's sad, but true.
it is.
And we let it happen.
Yep, that is absolutely true. I mean, conservatives are every bit as much to blame as leftists are now, and they still keep making a lot of the same fatal errors. Speaking of that, I've talked with Larry Elder about this just last week and Brad Thor. We look at the Supreme Court ruling. We're not even going to get into the whole gay thing if two dudes want to shack up, but finding something as a human right that isn't a right in the Constitution, do you believe that it is outside the realm of possibility, or am I being illogical in saying if they can find that right, and they don't really recognize a constitutional right in the Second Amendment, they still allow states to infringe upon that we could be one Supreme Court vote away from really losing access to firearms? Do you think that could happen?
Well, no, I don't think that'll happen. There will be attempts at that, but no, I don't think. I think that's not going to happen. It would. Well, if it does, it's going to be messy.
Right. Well, I don't mean they're going to say, hey, we're going to ban guns today. I'm going back to your paperboy voice. I mean, you saw the ammo shortage that happened. It's just so easy to manipulate the firearm market, kind of like Smith & Wesson had to put those locks in their revolvers, and it just changed the whole market. There's so many little things that can happen that could really create some volatility there where it would make it near impossible for the average American.
But there are more than enough guns out there to outnumber the federal government, surely, and the state militias, surely, and who's going to comply? It's all about compliance. You'd have to have everyone complying, and that just won't happen. And you'd also have to have everyone in the federal government forces complying with the orders, and I don't think that would happen either. I've talked to a lot of law enforcement friends and current military, former military.
Right.
They say we're not going to enforce that. They're not going to go door to door and kick in, the houses of law-abiding citizens. They may do it once or twice, but after that, the resistance will build. And there's just too damn many people.
It almost sounds like you're suggesting that an armed populace makes them more resistant to tyranny. I don't want to misquote you.
Let's just go with that.
Yeah, let's go. That's one thing I always find funny. They go, oh, what? So you think that a bunch of people with AR-15s and some pistols are going to fight off the government with nuclear bombs? Yes.
Exactly. They're going to drop bombs on their own neighborhood.
Right.
Sure. And then what?
Right.
But I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter recently about that whole thing, and I think we got into it. I believe it's Federalist 48 or something. Adams was talking about how we're, if you have I don't have the exact quotes, and it's in really good language that I don't want to ruin. But he said basically that there are too many people if they're armed for this sort of thing, and the guy, he was trying to use the Second Amendment. Who was it? It was one of those dumb talking head guys. His name will come to me in a second. But his argument was, the Second Amendment said in a organized militia or whatever the hell it is. And I said, it's like the founders didn't explain what that meant in other writings, did they?
Right. I mean, it's so clear. There are just some things that are really clear in the Constitution where it's like, well, listen, I understand that there's a court to deal with interpretation of the law and application. But there are some things that are so, inalienable rights shall not be infringed, right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Can we just find some common ground and say, case closed? Of course, I come from a place in Canada where, in Quebec, where we couldn't even own handguns. So the first time I came to the States and fired one, I thought I was snorting cocaine. It was like, my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Rambling back to the constitutional argument,
Well, I have to go to a break here because of the FCC, and then we'll bring you back and give you the floor. Adam Baldwin, large man. I want to keep him happy. Louder with Crowder. Stay tuned. Adam Baldwin is back. Please don't hurt me. You have the floor, sir.
Circling back to the constitutional argument and the last two Supreme Court decisions, there's an old saying that where the Constitution is silent, it's left to the states, and that's not what happened here. So you do have again what Levin calls a judicial tyranny, and that's scary. So will people comply? Is the next question.
Right.
How can they force people to comply?
Well, I'm not talking about a government taking. I'm talking about it could become very difficult to acquire firearms, I think, at some point. But I do think guns are a winning issue. I think if I were to advise right now a GOP guy, and you seem to do this too, I think this is a big reason a lot of people really like you. You're a Christian. You're pretty conservative across the board. I mean, in a way that's consistent. But you seem to focus on winning issues. I think right now, feminism has pushback. Islam has pushback. People are realizing and going, all right, let's stop the PC stuff here. It's dangerous. Guns have pushback. There's too much data. And the free speech thing. Those four issues are cultural winning issues. Do you see it that way?
I do. And my liberal friends, to use the straw man, they have guns. They own guns. They just don't talk about them publicly.
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't know what guns I own, if any.
I know you own guns. I'm pretty sure you've talked about guns on Twitter. I don't know how many you own.
I haven't talked about owning any.
Really? That's interesting. Yeah, I just tweeted out.
It doesn't mean I don't. Doesn't mean I do. I just don't talk about what I have.
Right. Well, I was asked on Russia Today, how many guns do you have? I said, that is for nobody else but me to know. I did just tweet out because I got a sweet piece yesterday, and so that was my birthday. A little bit of a brag there because I have an awesome wife. If a wife buys you a .357 Magnum, I think she deserves to be praised publicly. I know. She's a sweethart.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yes, exactly. And she's all about the guns. She's all about learning, and I'm really grateful for that. I don't know. Well, again, you don't talk about guns, so that's fine. But a lot of women.
I'd like to compete with you in a 3-gun challenge. That'd be fun.
Yes, we can go there. Let's take it in that direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another thing. You're dealing. You just had people try and get rid of you. Was it Australia at this sci-fi convention? The GamerGate people. How does that happen? How do they get to the point where they actually try and stage some kind? Do you call that a boycott? What is it called at that point?
Well, at first it was a petition to get me banned, but it failed. It was just a few people on Twitter. They know how they have an algorithm where they can replicate themselves into what they call bots and
right.
sock puppet accounts, and they generate 10 people can generate 5,000 emails to a promoter. And at first, if the promoter is not prepared, it can catch them off guard. And
sure. You
see this in other cultural issues as well. People get slammed with a bunch of emails and they react. I mean, Bubba Watson, I guess, has now taken the Confederate flag off of the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard,
right.
Which I think is an overreaction.
I think it's an overreaction, yeah.
The car, you can say what you like about the damn flag, love it or hate it, but the car is the car, and you're going to destroy the value of it by defacing it. Whether you put an American flag on it or not is not the issue. I love the American flag. I don't have any issue with the Confederate flag. It's not my flag. I grew up in the North, so I don't have a dog in that hunt. And I think a lot of people are just overreacting because they're looking to point the finger away from the over-drugged leftist crazy kid who went nuts and killed people.
Right.
It seems like that's the MO of these mass killers, these shooters. They're over-medicated youths who get off their meds and go crazy. And they're generally products of public education and the welfare state. And
right.
they're not conservatives.
Right. Speaking of not conservatives, you just tweeted this at me. So are you a Donald Trump fan, or do you just like how bold he's being?
I don't know Donald Trump. All I can see from what he's doing on the immigration issue is he's raising the issue. However, as they like to say, inartfully the language may be.
Right.
It's now part of the national conversation. So that's a good thing.
I think that's a good thing, too. My issue is people saying, well, he's the only one who's going to say it. Rick Perry, actually, my family living in Texas, having spent a lot of time there, did a lot on the immigration issue.
Oh, no, I know. I like Rick Perry. I'm not sure he's electable. I think
I think you're right. But my point is this with Donald Trump, because we did a vetting piece. I don't know if you saw, he's given way more to Democrats and Republicans, gave to the Clinton Foundation, both Senate and now. He was for illegal immigration, was for socialized healthcare, was for abortion. So I just, Andrew Breitbart said he wasn't conservative, and I go, okay, I'm a little leery. But I agree with you that this is valuable. My only issue is when conservatives sort of throw other conservatives under the bus and go, well, Donald Trump's the only one saying it, when someone like Rick Perry's been saying it for a long time. He's just not been saying it in a bombastic way, and so he gets overlooked.
Yeah, well, that goes to the GOP's lack of media savvy, and that's their fault. It's not Donald Trump's fault. I think
that's fair.
Do I think Trump can be elected president? No. Do I think that his contribution to this conversation is worthwhile? Yes. Do I think that he's damaged the GOP brand or can damage the GOP brand, as some of the GOPers are saying? Look, they've done a good enough job on their own of doing that. So
that's true.
What does that say about the GOP brand if Donald Trump can hurt it?
Well, yeah, it's like the
GOP brand. If you look at the two faces of the GOP brand, is John Boehner and Mitch McConnell. Hello. This
is true.
Until someone steps up, one of these candidates steps up, and I like Carly Fiorina and I like Marco Rubio. I do want a governor. I do tend to have preference for a governor, an executive, to step into that role, like Scott Walker. So he would probably be my favorite, but at this point, we don't know. This is why we have primaries.
Exactly. No, and I think you're right. People have given me so much flack I've been very critical of Trump. Again, being in New York, working in media, without saying so much, some people have different personal experiences. I'm not sold the guy's conservative. I think Donald Trump is in it for Donald Trump. And what I did write about, I wrote a vetting piece as to the reasons he's not conservative. And then right after that, I wrote, well, here are the top 5 things Donald Trump brings to the race. And the most important thing is, he's willing to poke his finger in the opponent's chest like Rahm Emanuel in the shower and go straight for the issues. And I think that'll embolden, look at when he did the birth certificate thing. Okay. I'm not a birther. I think it's silly. All right. Hold your emails. Someone will go, you brought it up. I knew you. No, that's not what I'm saying. But along with the birth certificate, he said, we don't know anything about his college records. We don't know anything about him. And so what happened was he went full on, Tropic Thunder with the birth certificate, and it allowed other GOPers to say, well, you know what, he's out of line on that, but he's right in that there is a lack of transparency, and they can sort of draft in. I see that as valuable, but I see him maybe overreaching, and I do think he could damage the party if he goes too far off the reservation.
So he could damage the party in the eyes of MSNBC and the Washington Post and the New York Times.
No, in the eyes of everyday Americans. I mean, most people, if you look at them who watch like Celebrity Apprentice, I mean, these numbers, anywhere between 20, 30. I mean, it's a highly rated show. Most people didn't like Donald Trump. They thought he was an ass. That's not me saying it. That's most people. Anyone who reads his book will think he's a horrendous person. I mean, if you read his Art of the Comeback, he just says some really mean-spirited things. So my thing is I'm going, he can definitely get in front of the media, but if they can attribute some of the horrendous things he said to conservatives, I think that could be a rough crime.
Well, they're going to do that anyway. They're already doing it. So it's that horse is out of the gate. They hated quote unquote Simon Cowell too. And he's huge star.
Huge man boobs. I don't know how that body type happens.
Have you met him?
I haven't. Have you met him?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to have a story about I met him and those things were like speed bags. I thought you were going to have a good Simon Cowell man boob story. No. All right. Well, listen, okay. We'll end the radio portion here. For those listening terrestrially, uncensored, the next portion here, you can follow it at louderwithcrowder.com. Last ship, watch that. Uncensored on the website. Continued. Adam Baldwin, we are off the reservation. You can say whatever you want. Now there are no guidelines here. So you make a good point. You just think that you don't think that there's really any way that Donald Trump could be more of a liability than people have already been in the GOP. Is that sort of fair to say? That's
fair. And I think it's so early in the cycle. And the experts, I've seen some experts, quote unquote, from Washington, with their Twitter. I follow them and I respect their opinions, but they think that it's all starting to happen now, and the narrative is gaining. I don't think most people are even paying attention. Yeah, they don't pay attention until next year.
I'm looking at your face right now, my Skype. My God, that is a good-looking man. Let me ask you something unrelated. You've aged well, Adam. Not to
Clean
go
living.
long.
Clean living.
Yes. Going back to the Jameson, you sounded like my mom. Watching The Last Ship, Stephen. Why can't you be more like Jordan?
Jordan calls me every week.
It's true. I don't call her enough. And I love my mom. She's she's actually been on the show. She's French Canadian, and she will say I would love her in a cabinet because she would deal with illegal immigration. If someone had to go through it legally, she would just be like, well, it was very hard for me to get my card. The people don't even speak English. The brown people, let's send them back. That's what she would say.
them they're tabernacles.
Them they're tabernacle. Yeah. You have aged well. And here's one thing I've talked with my brother about this. Full disclosure, Jordan knows Adam, and he's been a good guy to us. You don't attempt to look younger than you are. So you look like a good-looking, sort of middle-aged older guy. You're not going the full Judge Reinhold Botox. And was that a conscious decision, or did you just say, I can't do anything about it anyway?
I'm 53. That is. I mean, it is what it is.
Right. Yeah, but you're 50. You look in your early 50s, but you look like a guy who's kept it together in his early 50s. Why is it that so many people your age in the entertainment industry feel like, well, I can't be a good-looking 53-year-old. I'm 53. I've got to try and be a good-looking 32-year-old. I mean, because it's with men just as much as the women. Let's not act like it's sexism. In the entertainment industry, I mean, look at Rourke. Look at all of these actors who just, they can't even smile for crying out loud.
I don't know. John Wayne wore a toque, so
did he?
It goes back a long way. Sinatra. What about Sinatra? Come on.
I didn't know this. I mean, I know
it's show business, man.
So why didn't you? Why didn't you get all the? I mean, maybe you have. Maybe I'm wrong, and you just had a really great.
Oh, I've definitely worn wigs. What the hell?
No, I mean, you're not getting the. I mean, you don't look like a figurine. Maybe you're getting just really good microdermabrasions. But like I said, it seems like you're willing to age into your.
I think that's just genetic. I mean, my mom had good skin, and my dad had good skin, so I guess that's just a genetic thing. That's just that's my privilege.
Yeah, and your clean living.
I feel terribly guilty about it. I drink a lot of water, actually.
Do you really drink a lot of water? Because
I do drink a lot of water. I take my vitamins. I take vitamin E, and I try to wear sunscreen when I go play golf. All that, common sense stuff. Don't drink too much alcohol. Well,
that's tough to do at your size. I actually, Gay Jared, my producer. Actually, if you want to hear this story, Gay Jared is very little. He's a little man, and that's why so many people. That's why you can just look at him and know that he's gay. We went out one night to have a few beers, and it was a bunch of a brewery tour. And I'm sure you probably have a high tolerance, even though I'm certainly not assuming you drink a lot, Adam. You don't realize probably if you're around someone of normal size that they can't handle it. Gay Jared, remember that? You were swimming to the restroom.
I don't remember that actually.
You don't remember?
So that's that is the problem.
You got Gay Jared to blackout drunk?
No. We didn't.
No. I vaguely remember it. I do remember stumbling to the bathroom a little bit. I was trying to be a guy. Sit with you guys. You guys all 220s.
You got to know your limitations, man. You guys know when to start drinking water.
I do know them now. That is the benefit. That's what we got from the story.
That was well, we had one guy who was almost exactly your size. What are you about? 6'4", 6'5", Adam?
Who me? 6'5", 6'4.5", something like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's what he was. He played football at Notre Dame. He's about 6'4", 245, and I'm 6'2", 2.25. And Gay Jared is, what are you, 5'9", $145?
Yeah, $150.
Yeah, $150. So it's a rough night for him if he goes out with us and we're just having a few beers over the course of the evening with some Mexican food.
Drink half. Just drink half.
Yeah, Gay Jared, why didn't you think about that?
Drink little shandies that the ladies drink in England. They give them little half ginger ale, half beer.
Well, see, I was drinking cider, so I felt the need to at least drink the full cider to count as half a beer.
That's just juice, right?
The man points they're not the same. They don't trade off.
I'm drinking cider. It's just juice, right?
Well, that's funny.
I'll be fine.
I'll be fine. It's just drink it. Well, that's what's funny. A lot of mass-produced cider, and then I'll bring this back to the culture war, Adam. A lot of mass-produced cider is actually just apple juice sort of reconstituted, and they just add in alcohol as opposed to real fermented cider. Cider in the UK was considered a crusty old man's drink, like the ultimate, factory worker from Liverpool would drink cider. And then in the States, it was considered a dainty woman's drink. And now it's sort of come full circle where it's coming back around. Do you feel like that's happening in general with, you've been at the forefront with the feminism thing, just masculinity where people are less ashamed of being men?
2 words, gluten-free.
Oh, God. Are you gluten-free?
No.
Have you ever been gluten-free?
I am not now, nor have I ever been gluten-free. Although it does help some people. I've seen it in close, dear friends and family. It does work for some people.
Okay, I thought there was going something more. Well, yeah, if you have celiac, which is less than 1% of population Earth, and you eat gluten, it's not like, I think I have a tummy ache. Like, you get very sick. It's like, you're vomiting up your kidney. It's the only disease, though, that people just sort of get to claim. Like, no one's like, I think I have a little bit of AIDS. I'm AIDS intolerant, really.
Wow.
Like,
Why did you don't need, I mean, you didn't need to say that with that little lilt in your voice.
Well, I was imitating a woman who was gluten-free. What were you thinking?
Oh, I see. Okay.
I don't know. You know what? You're just attributing your microaggressions onto me, and that's exactly what GamerGate. That's what Jesse Jackson was talking about.
You're triggering me. Don't make me go. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I wasn't going to say anything. We're kind of, like I said, we're off the reservation on the podcast. If you were to say one thing right now, because you're not inherently a political guy, you're a cultural guy who happens to be smart enough to, I guess.
I've read Thomas Sowell and understood him.
Right. Yes. Exactly. And when I didn't know you, when Big Hollywood started, before it was Breitbart, sort of the trademark that it is now. I mean, the first site was Big Hollywood, and it was. You were one of the first people there. I remember Alfonso, Ben Shapiro, myself, I think Gary Graham back then.
Yep.
How did you come to know Andrew?
I met him at a get-together of a secret organization, of which will remain nameless.
Right.
And we just struck up a conversation about life in general and Hollywood, and we became fast friends. He's one of the sweetest, nicest, most lovable people you'll ever meet.
Yeah, that is true. I called him because I heard him on the Dennis Miller show, and I was like, oh, Big Hollywood. And at this point, I had no idea that there were even any other sort of right-leaning people in Hollywood, and he had no idea.
There are lots.
Yes,
they just it's a silent majority, I think.
Do you think it's actually a majority?
I do.
Really? Why?
I do. Well, because of the sets that I've been on and visited, and the people that I talk to, and even the liberals are economically conservative. They see their tax dollars. There are very few people who actually walk the walk like an Ed Begley Jr., who I can respect. I respect the fact that he walks his talk. So God bless him. I don't agree with him. I don't think that man is warming the planet, but he believes it, and he composts, and he rides his bicycle, and great, good for him. But the rest of the folks, they see their paychecks. I'm talking about like the rank and file. They see their paychecks every week, and they say, where the hell is all this money going?
Right.
I'm working 60 hours a week, and I'm making the same basically that I was when I was working 48 hours a week.
Right.
So I got kicked up into another tax bracket. So they see that. It really comes down to the cultural divide that was created back in the 60s through the 70s and all that stuff with abortion and gay marriage and gay rights. Those are the divisive issues for Hollywood, because Hollywood is culturally very accepting of all different kinds of people, as long as they're good looking.
This is true.
I'm just kidding. But it's
no,
true.
But you're not. If you're not good looking, you're what they call a character actor.
Yeah, there's that great SNL sketch with Tom Brady, the sexual harassment instructional video. Yeah. So rule number 1 in sexual harassment, be handsome.
Rule number 2, don't be not handsome.
Yeah, don't be Fred Armisen.
Yeah.
Who is also brilliant, but not Tom Brady.
No, I used to message him back and forth when MySpace was still a thing, and he was very, very nice. Was just like you could just tell was a genuinely kind person. Of course, leans to the left, but we emailed back and forth for a long, long time. Yeah, great sketch. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue with your Hollywood.
That's it. Basically, that the rank and file is center right or centrist, except on those 2 cultural issues.
Do you think that'll ever change, or do you think that'll always remain that way? The culture.
I was listening to Ben Shapiro. He's on morning show here, and I won't do it justice on how he described it, but basically he said that the problem with the Republican Party is that they won't address each individual person or group's number one issue and embrace it, whereas the Democrats will take each individual group's number one issue, be it abortion, be it taxes, be it whatever, and they'll embrace it and say, yep, we're on your side. And they'll get that group. Whereas the GOP is more like, well, no, we can agree with you on this, but we can't agree with you on that. And they'll reject the number one issue for that one group or person, and they'll lose them as voters over one issue.
Yeah.
But Shapiro explained it much more articulately than that, but that's basically the gist.
Yeah, well, my brother out there listens to that show and actually really likes the liberal guy in that show. He's like, they treat him like crap, and he's actually really funny. That's all my brother says. Like, this one guy in there is kind of liberal, but he's really funny, and they just crap all over him.
Not evil, not, like Andrew said, not evil, just wrong.
Yeah, and my brother's like, they treat him pretty harshly, and he seems like a decent guy. And maybe it's their shtick, but Andrew was really good about that too. And Andrew sort of, I remember talking about abortion with him at one point, and you realize that there are arguments to be made on both of those cultural issues that don't need to be faith-based, that don't need to be fire and brimstone, that can be made logically. And it's just not the arguments that the GOP, for whatever reason, has picked up.
The GOP makes a mistake in only embracing it as a social or religious issue, which it is, but it's mainly a political issue.
Right.
And it has to be addressed that way, because you're never going to get it to zero, where there's zero abortions that are allowed, and you're never going to get it to 100%. So somewhere in between is the compromise politically. Where is that? And I guess it's at 20 weeks now. It's creeping downward, which is good.
Right.
But it'll never get to zero. So I guess you can dig your heels in and say, if be 100%, I'm totalitarian on that, but you're not going to win it.
Right. Actually, I don't know if you saw Fiorina on The View. We posted that, and no one else was really covering it up to that point. People had kind of posted it and buried it, where she was in The View, and she talked about that. And she had two really, really good points. One, she said, well, I believe a feminist is any woman who makes the choice. She said a woman who is CEO of a corporation or who owns a business who chose to do that, that's a feminist to me. She said a stay-at-home mom who chose to do that, that's a feminist to me. She said as long as she has that choice. They had no response. They were silent. And then she talked about abortion. And she talked about late-term abortion. She said, well, let's find some common ground where the majority of Americans are against late-term abortions. And they were dead silent, Adam, for the entire interview until she said most Americans are against late-term abortions. And everyone in The View, this is what lit the fire under their ass to get up, was to support late-term abortion. They're like, oh, no. And she basically responded with, listen, the numbers, boom, done, case closed. People are opposed to it. But that, to me, is where I think there's a disconnect between sort of the James Camerons, the really progressive leftists who are for late-term abortions, and most of, like you said, the rank-and-file people. Even culturally, I don't think you'd find a ton of liberals across this country who would be for abortion, past 22 weeks. Am I completely just off my rocker?
No, I think you're right. I think that knee-jerk reaction of no comes from their fear of the slippery slope that it will get rolled back to zero,
right?
Which it won't. That's just irrational to think that it would go all the way back to zero. Much as I or you may want that, you can't get it. So you have to look and live in the real world, and the real world is there's a compromise at some point. And my cutoff would be, okay, does the baby have? Yes, the baby is life. We agree with that. And does the baby have a face, fingers, toes, brain activity, heartbeat? Then I think you got to look at it on an ultrasound and see, yep, that's a baby. So that baby has to have rights at some point.
Right.
And where is that? Where is that?
Right. It's a medical argument. Hitchens even talked about that, and certainly not a Christian.
And we as a people, as a society, have to decide where that is. And until we do and agree on it and have it voted on, as they did in Great Britain, they solved the abortion issue via popular vote, and so the people spoke, whereas we had it sort of shoved down our throats by the Supreme Court,
Right.
which is why it rages on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there definitely is a sort of a constant there where when the Supreme Court just says, we're going to decide, and people feel like they didn't have a chance to hash it out, the issue is never put to bed.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. I mean, even you look at in California with the same-sex marriage thing, it was people kind of, I remember being there with that, was it Prop 8? Is that what, it was Prop 8, right? First it was 22, right. Then it was 8. And it was, I was surprised being in LA, and I think people don't realize how conservative California can be once you go out of LA and San Francisco. And people voted on it, and Prop 8, and it was voted. And I remember it was nowhere near as volatile after Prop 8, even though you had the gay rights activists who were mad. It was nowhere near as volatile as when the court went back and just overturned it. That's when people got really pissed because they felt like their voice didn't matter.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And that was
it's also the further away you get from the locality. Again, the U.S. Constitution, federal Constitution, is silent on the matter, so the states should decide it on their own. I guess Justice Kennedy and the other three or four, whatever it was, the four liberals, they just by fiat said, nope, we get to decide. That's dangerous. Now, again, I'm not pro I don't have any dog in this fight. I live in California. It's part of the law of the land. Great, fine, terrific. Live your own life. I don't care about people's private lives or what his name is. I care about judicial tyranny from afar,
right,
in Washington D.C. That's what bothers me. And if they could do that, what can't they do?
That's true. And then I'll leave you with this in the final issue then, because you talk about that, and I've gotten a lot of emails, people who were really mad that I said I wasn't a Confederate flag guy. I'm a Lincoln guy. I'm Team Lincoln. I'm glad the Union won. And
me too. Yeah, me too.
Right. Well, people got really mad at me, and they go, well, you don't understand states' rights. And that's the thing. Lincoln was one of the first guys to abuse the concept of states' rights and impose federal law. And I said, well, hold on. I understand where you're coming from. But states' rights don't supersede human rights. They're going, well, whether you liked it or not, slavery at that point was a constitutionally protected right. I have this email. I'm going, well, you didn't consult the slave in the matter. So I don't think I'm being inconsistent by saying, yes, the federal government needed to step in to make sure everyone had unalienable rights, that all men were created equal before states' rights. And I can't for the life of me see how that's inconsistent, but a lot of conservatives have gotten mad at me and basically say I'm a statist for being Team Lincoln.
Yeah, well, they're on the losing side. They're not sure it's the wrong side, but it was the losing side.
Yeah. And those are the same people who say this country is gone. I was surprised at the 4th of July people going, it's not a great country anymore. I'm going, well, let me guess, you're Confederate? Yeah, you conceded the first war, so you're so quick to concede the war now, I guess, and roll over.
Yeah, but I think it's a squirrel. They point at the flag and the Confederate flag and say, that's the problem. No, that's not the problem. It was just a distraction from the real problem. And the real problem is the way children are raised or aborted in this country in these huge numbers, or educated by government education.
Right.
That's the biggest obstacle we have as conservatives, is to take back the schools or the education of our children.
Right.
Because until that happens, you're just going to get more liberalism.
No, I think you're right, but I wish people focused on that. To me, I was going, this is a perfect opportunity. A Confederate flag, just let Democrats own it. Lincoln, Republican, voting rights, Civil Rights Act. Republicans have been on the right side of every civil rights issue. Let them own it. Southern Democrats. And what I'm talking about, there was a pretty big conservative contingency who were not talking about the flag and businesses running the flag. They have every right to sell the flag. Everyone has the right to fly whatever flag they want, but supporting it under the idea that it was states' rights to either enforce slavery or not, and that it didn't need to be federally abolished. And I thought that was such a missed opportunity for conservatives. I mean, it's Lincoln. Yeah. We're not going to have a better ambassador, right, as a starting off point.
That's true. Another thing you got to look at is who's running corporations now, and what are they looking at? If they're looking at social media, so you got a lot of young people in the social media sphere in corporations that raise these red flags. Oh, there's a Twitter inquisition. We better fold. So instead of them just saying, just don't say anything. Like Bubba Watson, he could have just not said anything and left the General Lee in his garage, and it would have blown over, and the car would have maintained its value. I don't think he's going to paint it over. I bet he doesn't do it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I don't think he paints it over either. I don't even think he realized or thought it was offensive until this all came up.
Of course not.
No, I think you're right. No, well, we're going to let you go, Senior Baldwin, unless you have anything else you want to add to it. But last ship, for people who don't know, where, when can they find it? And you should find it, folks.
It's Sunday nights on TNT.
Sunday nights on TNT. Can you give us any juicy teasers for what's coming up?
Juicy teasers. Well, the crew of the Nathan James has survived the initial apocalypse and is traveling in and around the Norfolk area, and they run into a group of bad guys on land that are immune.
Okay. I see where this is going. I'm seeing a pattern here with this virus and this ship. You guys seem to be survivors, and I dig it. Adam Baldwin, thank you so much for being on. We appreciate it, and keep doing what you're doing. We really do. It's important out there.
Seek truth. Take care, brother.
Thank you, Senor. We will be right back. Actually, we won't. You're on the internet. We're in uncharted territory, so just go home. If you like this video, thank you. Subscribe by clicking my face or head over to louderwithcrowder.com. If you don't, your privilege is showing. Because you have access to content of far greater quality than this, and that offends me.